know that I can stand.
I know that I can stand.
No matter what comes my way.
No matter what may come my way.
Jesus, my life.
My life is in your hands.
Shalom and welcome to today's Nugget of Hope. Today I want to talk to us on what I've entitled, All Things Work Together for Good. All things work together for good. Now, a story is told, which you may have heard, about a king and his servant. The servant always told the king, God is good and his work is perfect. Now, one day, the king and his servant went for hunting. And while there, the king was attacked by a wild animal, and the servant managed to kill the wild animal, but the king lost one of his fingers. Furious and not appreciative, the king asked, if God is good and what he does is perfect, how come he allowed the wild animal to attack me and I have lost my finger? And the servant said, King, I still would tell you, God is good and what he does is perfect. The king was so furious when the servant replied him that way, and he ordered for his servant to be imprisoned. So when the servant was being taken to prison, the servant said, King, I still want you to know that God is good and what he does is perfect. Now, the servant was locked up in prison. One day, the king decided to go hunting again alone. This time, he was captured by savages who offer human beings as sacrifice. When they laid the king on the altar to be offered as a sacrifice, they realized that he had one finger missing, and they said he is not complete to be sacrificed to the gods, so he was released. When he came back, he asked for his servant to be released from prison, and he told the servant, I now know that God is good and what he does is perfect. God was very good to me today. But I want to ask you a question. If God is good and all he does is perfect, how come he allowed me to imprison you? The servant said, O king, God is good and all he does is perfect. Because if I went with you hunting, I would not have come back because I have all my fingers. The savages would have offered me as a sacrifice. Now I want you to know that what the servant knew and believed is what we also need to know and believe about our God. Our God is good and what he does is perfect. And that is what the Bible tells us in the book of Romans chapter 8 and verse number 28, that all things work together for good. Now you may be going through some trials, some tough times in your life, and sometimes you wonder, how is this going to work for my good? If only you will be patient and allow God to finish what he's doing, you will realize, just like the servant always believed, that God is good and all he does is perfect. There are people that have lost jobs only to realize that it was a stepping stone to their promotion. There are people that have lost opportunities only to realize that those opportunities were going to endanger their lives. There are people that have been left in relationships only to realize that God was saving them from a very bad relationship in future. And so I want you to know that whatever happens to you, God is good and all he does is perfect. It does not matter what you're going through, what you are experiencing in life today. Develop the attitude that God is good and all he does is perfect. I'm reminded of Joseph. He's sold by his brothers to Egypt, and while there, Joseph works his way faithfully, always remaining faithful to God. He lands in prison and wondered, if God is good, how come my life is going down, down, down? And yet, God was working something good and perfect for Joseph. Because he was in prison, he was able to interpret the dream for the cupbearer and his fellow prisoner. And when the cupbearer was restored to do his work in the palace, he remembered when Pharaoh dreamed and no one could interpret the dream. He remembered Joseph, and Joseph was taken out of prison, interpreted the king's dream, and became the second in command. All that Joseph went through was because God is good and all he does is perfect. I don't know what you're going through, but all I would tell you today is that God is good and all he does is always perfect. Shalom.
His grace and mercy do it forever. He loves you.